My husband said during marriage counseling, "My mom was right from the beginning, I should have married Amanda instead of you." I stayed completely calm and did exactly what he wanted without any drama. 6 months later, Sarah called me at 2 a.m. sobbing uncontrollably. What she discovered about him made her beg for my help and protection desperately. I knew Amanda was stealing from Linda's catering company by month 8. I had enough evidence to prove it by month 14. And I waited another 5 years to expose her. Not because I wasn't sure. Because I needed Linda to be completely dependent on Amanda first. I needed the business to take on the massive expansion loan that Amanda helped arrange. I needed Amanda so embedded in every aspect of Linda's operations that the revelation would be catastrophic, not just embarrassing. I needed Kyle so convinced of his mother's judgment that my silence would look like incompetence instead of strategy. Most importantly, I needed Amanda to feel so safe, so celebrated, so certain she'd gotten away with it that she'd keep stealing right up until the moment I dropped the evidence in front of everyone. 7 years wasn't patience. It was precision. The comment that started everything came during our 4th marriage counseling session. Kyle and I were sitting on opposite ends of Dr. Morrison's beige couch, not looking at each other, when the therapist asked Kyle what he thought the core issue was in our marriage. He didn't hesitate. "My mother was right from the beginning. I should have married Amanda instead." Dr. Morrison's pen stopped moving. I felt my face get hot, then cold, then completely neutral. Kyle wasn't even looking at me when he said it. He was looking at his hands, like he'd just stated a simple fact about the weather. "Amanda Thornton," he continued. "She was at our wedding. My best friend Jason married her about 6 months after we got married. My mother always said Amanda had the kind of taste and business sense that would have complemented our family better. And honestly, watching her help my mom with the catering company these past couple years, I think my mother was right." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I sat there on that beige couch and said, "Okay." Dr. Morrison looked startled. "Megan, how does that make you feel?" "Like maybe Kyle and Linda know something I don't," I said quietly. "Maybe I should just try to learn from Amanda instead of competing with her." Kyle actually looked relieved. Like I'd finally understood something he'd been trying to explain for years. That was the moment I decided. Not to win Kyle back. Not to prove I was better than Amanda. To figure out exactly why Linda was so obsessed with Amanda Thornton, and whether that obsession was based on anything real. Linda owned Prestige Affairs, a catering company she'd built over 25 years into something genuinely successful. She did corporate events, weddings, fundraisers throughout the region. She had 12 full-time staff and brought in seasonal workers for bigger events. It was legitimate, profitable, and entirely Linda's pride. She'd never liked me. From the first family dinner, she'd made that clear. I worked as a data analyst for an insurance company, which Linda found uninspiring. I preferred reading to attending her charity luncheons, which she found antisocial. I wore simple clothes and didn't understand why centerpieces mattered, which apparently confirmed I had no sophistication. Amanda was everything Linda wanted in a daughter-in-law. Amanda attended the art museum fundraisers. Amanda knew which wines paired with which courses. Amanda had opinions about escort card fonts and could discuss floral trends with actual enthusiasm. When Jason married Amanda, Linda practically adopted her. She brought Amanda to vendor meetings. She asked Amanda's opinion on event designs. And then about 2 years into my marriage to Kyle, Linda officially hired Amanda as an event consultant, at $1,500 per event. I was at that family dinner when Linda announced it. "Amanda has such a refined eye," Linda said, beaming. "She's going to help elevate our aesthetic and bring in a more discerning clientele." Kyle nodded along. "That's a great idea, Mom. Amanda really understands quality." I was cutting my chicken and didn't say anything. Linda glanced at me. "Megan, I don't suppose you'd be interested in helping with some of the administrative work? I know numbers are more your speed than creative decisions." It was dismissive. Condescending. Exactly the kind of comment Linda had been making for 2 years. And I said yes. "I'd be happy to help with whatever you need," I told her. "Permits, vendor contracts, invoicing, whatever takes time away from the creative work." Linda looked mildly surprised but pleased. "Well, that would actually be helpful. The paperwork side has gotten tedious." Kyle smiled at me like I'd finally done something right. I started the following week. Linda gave me access to her business accounts, her vendor files, her contract templates. She treated it like she was doing me a favor, letting me be useful in some small way. What she actually did was give me complete visibility into every financial transaction her company made. I'm a data analyst. I look at patterns for a living. And within 2 months, I saw a pattern in Linda's expenses that didn't make sense. There was a vendor called Prestige Event Solutions that provided specialty linens. They charged $8,500 for a corporate event in March. I pulled up Linda's usual linen vendor, Classic Table Rentals, and checked their pricing. The same order from Classic would have cost $3,200. I checked who recommended Prestige Event Solutions. Amanda had suggested them during a planning meeting. Linda approved it without question because Amanda had good taste. I searched the business registration for Prestige Event Solutions. The registered agent was Marcus Thornton. Amanda's husband Jason had a cousin named Marcus. I checked 3 more vendors Amanda had recommended over the past 18 months. 2 of them had similar pricing inflation. One was registered to Marcus Thornton. Another was registered to someone named Vanessa Kellerman, who turned out to be Marcus's girlfriend. Amanda wasn't just recommending vendors. She was recommending fake companies that overcharged Linda, then splitting the difference with whoever ran the shell company. By month 8, I knew what she was doing. By month 14, I had documentation of $47,000 in fraudulent charges across 9 events. And I didn't tell anyone. I kept doing Linda's paperwork. I kept attending family dinners where she praised Amanda's contributions and barely acknowledged my presence. I kept going to therapy sessions where Kyle agreed with his mother that Amanda represented everything I wasn't. And I kept documenting every single invoice Amanda touched. The thing about financial fraud is that it follows patterns. Once someone finds a system that works, they repeat it. Amanda had found a system where she'd recommend a vendor. Linda would approve it based on Amanda's taste, and nobody questioned the pricing because the events still came in under budget overall. Amanda was smart enough to steal selectively, not on every event, just enough that the margins stayed reasonable. But I was tracking every event, every vendor, every recommendation Amanda made. I built a spreadsheet that only I could access, backed up in 3 separate places. Invoice copies, business registrations, price comparisons with legitimate vendors, payment records showing exactly where Linda's money went. By the end of year 2, Amanda had stolen $86,000. Linda gave her a raise. "You've brought in such wonderful clients," Linda told her at Christmas dinner. "I don't know what I'd do without your eye for quality." Amanda smiled modestly. "I just want to help the business thrive." I was sitting at the other end of the table eating prime rib and saying nothing. Kyle squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you and Amanda get along now," he whispered. "It means a lot to my mom." I squeezed back and smiled. Year 3 was when Amanda made her biggest move. She told Linda the business was ready to expand. Not just more events but a second location. A permanent event space that Prestige Affairs would own, that could be rented out for weddings and corporate functions, that would establish Linda as a major player in the regional event industry. Linda was hesitant. "That's a significant investment. But think of the revenue potential," Amanda said. "And I know a commercial real estate developer who specializes in event spaces. He could walk you through the numbers." The developer was legitimate. The numbers actually made sense. Linda took out a $600,000 loan and bought a converted warehouse space 40 minutes outside the city. The renovation took 8 months. Amanda consulted on every design choice. She recommended the contractor, the lighting designer, the AV installation company. I tracked every payment. The contractor overcharged by 30%. The lighting designer was another Marcus Thornton shell company. The AV installer was legitimate, but Amanda negotiated a bulk discount that I'm certain she pocketed personally. By the time the event space opened, Amanda had extracted another $120,000 from the expansion budget. Linda threw a grand opening party. She gave a speech thanking Amanda for her vision and support. "This wouldn't exist without you," she said, tearing up slightly. Amanda hugged her. Kyle applauded. I took photos like the supportive family member I was supposed to be. The event space did well at first. Linda booked 3 weddings in the first 2 months. But the loan payments were substantial, and the operating costs were higher than projected. Linda started looking stressed. The main catering business was still profitable, but not enough to comfortably cover both operations. Amanda suggested bringing in a business consultant. Someone who can look at your operations and find efficiencies, she said. The consultant Amanda recommended charged $15,000 for a 3-month engagement. I checked his background. He'd worked with Marcus Thornton at a previous company. The report he delivered was generic advice Linda could have found in any business management book. Year 4, Linda started cutting costs. She reduced staff hours. She negotiated harder with her legitimate vendors. She stopped taking a full salary some months so she could make the loan payment. And she kept paying Amanda's inflated vendors, because Amanda was the one person she trusted completely. Kyle and I went to therapy less frequently. Dr. Morrison said we'd made progress, which was hilarious because Kyle and I barely spoke at home beyond logistics. He worked long hours at his accounting firm. I worked my insurance job during the day and spent evenings doing Linda's administrative work. Nobody questioned why I was so dedicated to helping. Linda thought I'd finally accepted my place in the family. Kyle thought I was trying to make amends for not being Amanda. I was building a case that now included $230,000 in documented fraud. Year 5 was when I started getting specific about timing. I needed Linda completely dependent on Amanda. I needed the financial situation critical enough that the revelation would have maximum impact. I needed Amanda so embedded that removing her would feel like losing a limb. I also needed Kyle fully convinced his mother was right about everything. That part happened naturally. At family dinners, Linda would talk about business challenges and Kyle would say, "At least you have Amanda to help you think through the strategic stuff." When the event space had a slow month, Linda would worry out loud and Kyle would say, "Amanda will figure out how to market it better." Amanda became the solution to everything. The trusted advisor. The daughter Linda wished she'd had. And I stayed quiet, helpful, invisible. Year 6, Linda's business partner, a woman named Carolyn who handled the operational side, started noticing the financial stress. She pulled me aside at a company holiday party. "Is Linda okay?" Carolyn asked. The numbers seemed tight. "The expansion was expensive," I said carefully. "Those vendor costs seem high to me," Carolyn said. "I've been in this business 30 years. Some of these invoices don't match market rates." I'd been waiting for someone else to notice. "Have you mentioned it to Linda?" "She says Amanda vets all the premium vendors personally. Linda trusts her judgment completely." I nodded. "Amanda does have good relationships." Carolyn looked at me for a long moment. "You do all the paperwork. You see everything. Do the numbers look right to you?" This was the moment I could have handed everything over. Could have let Carolyn be the one to expose it. But Carolyn wasn't the right person and this wasn't the right time. I needed Linda to hear it at a moment when the betrayal would be maximum, when the entire family would witness what Amanda really was. "I just process what Linda approves," I said. "I'm not really qualified to judge vendor pricing." Carolyn didn't look satisfied, but she dropped it. I went home that night and added Carolyn to my exposure plan. When the moment came, she needed to be there. She needed to see the evidence so she could confirm it, so Linda couldn't dismiss it as a misunderstanding. Year 7, everything aligned. Linda's stress was visible. The business was surviving but barely. She'd had to take out a second, smaller loan to cover operating costs. Amanda was more involved than ever, attending every planning meeting, weighing in on every decision. And Kyle told me at our annual Valentine's dinner, "I'm really grateful you've made peace with how things are. My mom says you've been such a help with the boring stuff, and that's let Amanda focus on the things she's good at." The boring stuff. 7 years of documentation. 7 years of tracking $430,000 in theft. 7 years of watching Amanda steal from Linda while Linda praised her. "I'm just glad I can contribute," I said. Kyle smiled and ordered us another bottle of wine. I marked Valentine's Day on my calendar. 10 months until Christmas. Christmas dinner was always at Linda's house, always formal, always with the full family present. Kyle, me, Jason, Amanda, Linda's sister and her husband, Carolyn and her wife. 10 months to make sure everything was documented perfectly. 10 months to verify every shell company, every inflated invoice, every kickback payment. 10 months to build a presentation so airtight that there would be no wiggle room, no excuses, no possibility of dismissal. I worked late every night that spring. Linda thought I was being extra helpful. Kyle thought I was probably avoiding dealing with our marriage problems. I was creating a 287-page document with every piece of evidence organized chronologically, cross-referenced, annotated with business registration records and market rate comparisons. In July, Amanda recommended another vendor for a major corporate client. Premier Floral Concepts, charging $22,000 for arrangements that should have cost $9,000. Registered to Marcus Thornton. I added it to the file. In September, Linda's stress reached a breaking point. She snapped at staff over minor mistakes. She cried in her office after a client complained about pricing. Carolyn came to me again. "Something's wrong," she said. "We should be profitable. The events are booked. The clients are happy. But the money isn't there. Have you looked at the vendor expenses?" I asked. "Linda won't let me. She says Amanda has specialized relationships and I wouldn't understand the premium market." I nodded. "Maybe it'll improve after the holidays." Carolyn gave me a strange look. "You know something." "I know Linda trusts Amanda," I said. "And I know that Christmas dinner is going to be very interesting this year." I didn't explain further. Carolyn didn't push, but she watched me differently after that. December came. Linda planned the annual Christmas dinner with her usual precision. She invited everyone 3 weeks in advance. She hired staff to cook and serve so it would be elegant, impressive. She asked Amanda to help select the menu and arrange the table settings. Amanda suggested a specialty bakery for dessert. The bakery quoted $800 for a cake and pastries. I checked. It was another Marcus Thornton company. The actual bakery Linda usually used would have charged $280. I didn't say anything. I added it to the file. Christmas dinner was on December 23rd. I wore a simple black dress. Kyle wore a suit. We arrived at Linda's house at 6. Amanda and Jason were already there, Amanda looking elegant in emerald green. She hugged Linda and presented her with a gift, some expensive kitchen gadget Linda had mentioned wanting. "You're too thoughtful," Linda said, beaming. Carolyn and her wife arrived next, then Linda's sister Margaret and her husband Tom. We gathered in Linda's formal dining room, the table set with china and crystal, candles everywhere, Christmas music playing softly. Linda was stressed but hiding it well. The business was struggling, but she'd never admit it in front of family. She poured champagne and made a toast. "To family," she said. "And to the people who've supported Prestige Affairs through another successful year." She looked directly at Amanda when she said it. "I genuinely don't know what I would have done without your guidance and friendship, Amanda. You've been such a gift to this family and to my business." Amanda smiled warmly. "It's been my pleasure. I love what you've built, Linda." Kyle raised his glass. Jason raised his. I raised mine. We sat down to dinner. The conversation flowed around me. Business talk, holiday plans, Margaret's upcoming cruise. I ate roast beef and scalloped potatoes and waited. Dessert came out. The $800 cake from Amanda's recommended bakery. It was beautiful, elaborate, completely unnecessary. Linda cut slices. Everyone praised it. Amanda mentioned she'd found the bakery and thought Linda would appreciate their artistry. "Everything you recommend is always perfect," Linda said. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. I placed it on the table next to Linda's dessert plate. The conversation didn't stop immediately. Linda glanced at the folder, confused. "What's this?" 7 years of documentation, I said quietly. Every vendor Amanda recommended. Every invoice she influenced. Every dollar that left your business and went to shell companies owned by Marcus Thornton and his associates. The table went silent. Linda stared at me. "What are you talking about?" "Amanda has been stealing from Prestige Affairs since month 6 of her consulting arrangement. The folder has 287 pages of evidence. Business registrations. Invoice comparisons with market rates. Payment records. She's extracted $437,000 from your company over 7 years, including $140,000 from the expansion project that you're currently struggling to finance." Amanda's face went white. "That's insane. I would never." "Prestige Event Solutions," I said, looking at her directly. "Premier Floral Concepts. Elite Staffing Services. Distinction Lighting Design. All registered to Marcus Thornton, Jason's cousin, who splits the profits with you. I have the business registrations. I have the payment records. I have price comparisons showing exactly how much each vendor overcharged compared to legitimate market rates. Jason stared at Amanda. Marcus? My cousin Marcus. Kyle was looking at me like he'd never seen me before. You've been investigating this? I've been documenting it, I corrected. Since month 8 of Amanda's consulting arrangement. I had enough evidence to prove fraud by month 14. I waited because I needed the scope to be undeniable and the timing to be perfect. Linda opened the folder with shaking hands. The first page was a summary sheet. Total fraud, $437,000. Number of fake vendors, 12. Time period, 7 years. Supporting documentation, 286 pages. She flipped to the next page. A detailed breakdown of the first fraudulent vendor, including the business registration showing Marcus Thornton as owner, the invoice Amanda's recommendation generated, and a price comparison with 3 legitimate vendors. This can't be real, Linda whispered. Carolyn stood up and came around the table. She looked over Linda's shoulder at the documentation. Her face hardened. It's real, Carolyn said. I've been worried about the vendor costs for 2 years. I told you something felt wrong. Amanda pushed back from the table. You're all believing this? Megan is clearly jealous and has fabricated. I didn't fabricate business registration records, I said calmly. The state maintains those. I didn't fabricate your text messages to Linda recommending these vendors. I didn't fabricate the invoices or the payment records. Everything in that folder came from Linda's own business files and public records. You can verify every single piece of information independently. Margaret leaned forward. Amanda, is Marcus really Jason's cousin? Jason nodded slowly, looking sick. Yeah. He works in event services. I thought it was a coincidence when his company started getting hired. It wasn't a coincidence, I said. Amanda created the companies, Marcus registered them, and they split the overcharges. The bakery that made tonight's dessert? That's one of them. The actual cost for this cake was about $280. You paid $800. Amanda and Marcus split the $520 difference. Linda was crying now, quietly looking through page after page of documentation. Kyle was staring at me. Why didn't you tell us years ago? Because 7 years ago, Amanda had stolen $47,000 and Linda would have paid her back quietly to avoid scandal. Because 3 years ago, the evidence was substantial but Amanda could have claimed ignorance about Marcus's business practices. Because I needed Amanda to be so deeply embedded in every aspect of this business that the revelation would be catastrophic. I needed Linda completely dependent on her. I needed you completely convinced your mother was right about her. I needed Amanda to feel so safe that she'd keep stealing right up until this moment. I looked at Linda. I've been your administrator for 7 years. I see every transaction, every contract, every payment. I noticed the pattern in month 6. I documented it in month 8. I proved it in month 14. And I waited until you'd taken on debt based on Amanda's advice, until the business was struggling under the weight of her theft, until everyone at this table had spent years praising her judgment. Amanda stood up. I'm leaving. You should probably call a lawyer instead, Carolyn said. She'd taken out her phone. I'm calling the police. This is embezzlement and fraud. Amanda looked at Jason. You can't believe this. Jason was looking at the folder in Linda's hands. Did you do it? No. This is completely. Because if Marcus is involved and you recommended his companies, I need to know right now if you did this. Amanda's silence was answer enough. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Jason didn't follow her. Linda was still crying, turning pages. Margaret had moved to sit next to her, reading over her shoulder. Tom was on his phone, presumably looking up the business registrations I'd cited. Kyle stood up and came over to where I was sitting. Why didn't you tell me? Because you spent 7 years telling me your mother was right and I wasn't good enough. Because you said in therapy you should have married Amanda instead. Because if I'd told you earlier, you would have defended her and questioned my evidence. I needed the evidence to be so overwhelming that there was no defense, no question, no room for anyone to dismiss what I found. He looked gutted. I never thought. No, I agreed. You didn't think. About what I was doing, about why I was doing it, about whether maybe I had reasons for staying quiet. You just assumed I'd finally accepted my place. Carolyn came back to the table. Police are sending someone. This is going to be a formal investigation. She looked at me. Did you make copies of this documentation? 3 complete sets. 1 with my lawyer, 1 in a safety deposit box, 1 encrypted digitally. Carolyn almost smiled. You've been planning this for a long time. 7 years, I said. Not patience. Precision. The police arrived 40 minutes later. Linda gave them the folder. They took statements from everyone at the table. Amanda had already left, but they had her information from Jason. They explained this would be investigated as wire fraud and embezzlement, that the evidence would be reviewed by financial crime specialists, that charges would likely be filed. Linda sat in her living room after they left, Margaret beside her still looking shell-shocked. How much of the expansion money was stolen? She asked me. Approximately $140,000. The contractor overcharged by 30%, which was split with Amanda. The lighting designer was entirely fake. That was $35,000. The AV installation was legitimate, but Amanda negotiated a kickback. Several of the furniture and equipment vendors were Marcus's companies. The business consultant worked with Marcus previously. The report was worthless. That was $15,000. Linda closed her eyes. I can't believe I didn't see it. She was very good at making you think it was about taste and quality, I said. And you wanted to believe in her. Kyle was sitting across the room, looking at his hands the way he had in Dr. Morrison's office when he said he should have married Amanda instead. Carolyn checked her watch. I should go. Linda, we'll talk tomorrow about next steps for the business. Megan, I assume you have recommendations. Several. But they can wait. After Carolyn left, Margaret convinced Linda to go lie down. Tom cleaned up the dessert plates nobody had finished. Jason sat in the corner calling someone repeatedly, probably Amanda, and getting voicemail. Kyle walked over to me. Are we going to talk about this? About what? About how you spent 7 years agreeing with your mother that I wasn't good enough. About how you said you should have married a woman who was stealing from your mother's business. About how neither of you noticed that the boring administrative work I was doing was actually protecting Linda from financial ruin. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You didn't wonder why I was helping. You just assumed I was trying to earn approval I'd never get. He sat down heavily. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I don't want you to say anything. I wanted you to notice 7 years ago that your wife was competent and paying attention. I wanted your mother to respect the work I was doing instead of dismissing it. I wanted Amanda to face consequences for theft instead of praise for sophistication. I got 2 out of 3. I stood up and got my coat. Where are you going? Kyle asked. Home. Our home, not your mother's house. I'm tired. I drove home alone, leaving Kyle at his mother's house to deal with the aftermath. I made tea and sat in my quiet kitchen and felt nothing except a kind of distant satisfaction. 7 years of watching Amanda steal while everyone praised her. 7 years of being dismissed as not good enough. 7 years of documentation and patience and precision. And now Linda knew. Kyle knew. Jason knew. Carolyn knew. The police knew. Amanda's life was about to collapse. The criminal investigation. The civil lawsuit Linda would file. The divorce Jason would initiate. The exposure in their social circle. Everything she'd built on fraud and theft, gone. I slept well that night. The next morning Linda called me. Can you come by the office? Carolyn and I need to talk to you. I drove to Prestige Affairs. Linda looked like she hadn't slept. Carolyn looked grim but focused. We need you to walk us through everything, Linda said. The police will need it, but I need to understand it first. I spent 4 hours going through the documentation. Every vendor. Every invoice. Every shell company. Linda cried twice. Carolyn took detailed notes. By the end, they had a complete picture of how Amanda had systematically stolen from the business while positioning herself as its savior. The expansion loan, Linda said. If she hadn't inflated those costs. You'd be profitable right now, Carolyn finished. The event space would be working exactly as projected. Linda looked at me. Why didn't you tell me earlier? When you first noticed? Because I needed you to see the full scope. If I'd told you in month 8 when I had $47,000 in evidence, you might have paid her back quietly, fired her and moved on. She would have faced minimal consequences. I needed the theft to be so extensive, so undeniable, so embedded in your business decisions that there was no way to minimize it. You let her keep stealing for 7 years. I documented her stealing for 7 years. Every dollar she took is accounted for. Every fake company is traced. When you sue her, when the police prosecute her, there will be no question about guilt or damages. That's what 7 years of precision gets you. Linda was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I'm sorry. For how I treated you. For what I said about you. For believing Amanda instead of your daughter-in-law who was actually protecting your business, I said. Yeah. I don't know how to fix this. You can't. You can move forward. You can rebuild. You can use my documentation to recover some of the money through lawsuits and insurance claims. But you can't fix 7 years of choosing Amanda over me. Carolyn looked at me carefully. What are you going to do? I'm going to file for divorce, I said. I already have the paperwork started. Linda's face crumpled. Because of Kyle saying he should have married Amanda? Because Kyle spent 7 years agreeing with you that I wasn't good enough, while I spent 7 years protecting your business from the woman you both thought was better than me? That's not fixable. I left them in the office and drove home. Kyle was there sitting at the kitchen table. My mom called me, he said. She told me you're filing for divorce. I am. Because of what I said in therapy. Because of what you said, what you believed, what you never questioned. I watched you agree with your mother for 7 years that Amanda was superior in every way. I watched you trust her judgment over mine. I watched you dismiss everything I did as just administrative work. And I waited until you saw exactly who Amanda really was before I ended this. You really waited 7 years just to prove a point? I waited 7 years to prove Amanda was a criminal, and I was the only person paying close enough attention to catch her. That's not a point. That's a fact. He looked devastated, which was not particularly satisfying but also not my problem anymore. The police investigation took 3 months. They confirmed everything in my documentation. Amanda was charged with wire fraud, embezzlement, and operating a criminal enterprise. Marcus was charged as an accomplice. The prosecution was solid. Jason filed for divorce immediately. Linda filed a civil lawsuit to recover damages. Her insurance covered some of the theft. The lawsuit would take years but would likely succeed given the criminal evidence. Kyle and I went through mediation. It was civil but cold. We divided assets. I kept the documentation that had saved his mother's business. He kept the family that had spent 7 years telling him I wasn't good enough. Christmas came around again. I wasn't at Linda's formal dinner. I was in my own apartment, the one I'd rented after the divorce finalized, drinking wine and reading. My phone rang at 2 a.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. It was Amanda. Megan. Her voice was wrecked. Sobbing. Please. I need help. You need a lawyer. You have charges pending. I know. But there's something else. Something I found out about Marcus. About what else he was doing. I'm scared. I don't know who to trust. Why would you call me? Because you spent 7 years documenting everything. You see patterns. You understand how this stuff works. Please. I'll tell you everything. About how it started. About why I did it. About what Marcus is involved in that I didn't know about. I just need someone who'll actually listen. I hung up. She called back immediately. Please. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for help. There are people involved in this who are dangerous. Marcus was using Linda's business for more than kickbacks. I just figured it out. If you still have any sense of wanting to protect Linda's company, you need to know this. I paused. What kind of more? Money laundering. Through the vendor payments. I thought we were just stealing. Marcus was running dirty money through those shell companies. And now those people know the fraud got exposed. They know there's documentation. They know everything's going to come out in court. That was a different problem. That was a problem that could extend beyond Amanda's fraud into Linda's business being used for criminal enterprise. I'll meet you, I said. Tomorrow. Public place. Thank you. Thank you. I hung up and sat in the dark thinking. 7 years of documentation. 7 years of tracking every vendor, every payment, every transaction. And apparently I'd tracked something bigger than I realized. I made myself more tea. Tomorrow I'd find out what Amanda really wanted. Tonight I'd review my files and see if there were patterns I'd missed. Patterns that might explain why Amanda sounded genuinely terrified. 7 years of precision had destroyed Amanda's life. But it might have created an entirely new problem. And despite everything, despite the divorce and the betrayal and the 7 years of being dismissed, I was the only person who had the documentation to solve it. I opened my laptop and started reviewing shell company transactions, looking for patterns that went beyond simple theft. Turned out 7 years of setup wasn't finished yet. It was just entering a new phase. 7 years of silence. One perfect moment of exposure. Was Megan's precision worth the wait? Drop a comment with your favorite moment. The Christmas dinner reveal? Amanda's 2 a.m. panic call? Hit that subscribe button for more stories where patience becomes the ultimate weapon. Which part gave you the most satisfaction?